When we talk about COVID, you probably think of the negative ways it has affected your life. After all, it has had a major impact on just about everyone in the entire world. It's been such a significant event that people call anything before March 2020 pre-COVID. The truth is, though, that there are some good things that have come from the pandemic, and I want to talk about one of them today, because I believe that COVID may have saved Bitcoin. Bitcoin is a divisive topic in today's world. It's loved by some and hated by others. Everyone you talk to nowadays seems to have some opinion on it, and it's even gotten to the point where Congress is holding multiple hearings on it. Things haven't always been this way, though. While Bitcoin has been in the news off and on for a decade, it hasn't seen nearly as much attention as it has received since late 2020. This is because the price has absolutely exploded. Around October of 2020, the price went from $11,000 to nearly $50,000 in just 5 months, putting a lot of eyes back on what was a somewhat ignored asset. We all know it happened, though. That's not the debate here. The debate is about why Bitcoin saw such a sudden rise in price. To understand why, we need to take a look at Bitcoin's most recent crypto winter. In 2017, Bitcoin and crypto as a whole saw a massive rise in price, similar to that of what we saw in 2020 to 2021. And actually, in terms of straight numbers, the 2017 bull run is the more impressive one. Bitcoin started 2017 at a price under $1,000 and peaked in mid-December with a price of nearly $20,000. There are a lot of reasons why this run happened. There had recently been a Bitcoin halving. This is an event where the total number of Bitcoins awarded to miners is halved, meaning a lot fewer new Bitcoins were coming onto the market. Bitcoin had also been receiving more media attention around this time. The main thing I wanted to focus on, though, is how quickly and extraordinarily it crashed. 2018 would seem one of the scariest time periods in crypto history. Right after the pump to $20,000, Bitcoin would quickly fall back down, being at only $13,000 by the end of December of 2017. This would be swiftly reversed, though, and by January 5th of 2018, we would see a recovery back to $17,000. Many people rejoiced, thinking that Bitcoin was having a nice recovery, but it was only a bull trap, meaning this rally was not going to last and the price was about to absolutely tank. Only 5 days after hitting $17,000, the price had fallen back down to under $14,000, and by February 4th, the price had gone down to under $7,000. A decrease of 60% had just occurred in the price of Bitcoin in just 1 month. While there would be recovery in price over the short term, it would take nearly 3 years before the price would get anywhere near $20,000 again. This period of a prolonged bear market is now known as one of the crypto winters. During this period, the few companies that had expressed interest in Bitcoin during the 2017 bull run seemed to quickly put efforts elsewhere, and the same happened for many retail investors. After experiencing such a massive crash, many saw Bitcoin as a failed experiment, and others saw their get-rich-quick scheme fail and moved on with their lives. This is because there wasn't much conviction behind the investments people were making into Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies. They were more interested in making money rather than having a connection to what Bitcoin could do and the problems it could solve. But despite all of that, as 2019 came to an end, the price of Bitcoin had made somewhat of a recovery. Bitcoin was back up to $7,000 and even over $10,000 at several points. A far cry from the highs of 2017, but enough of a rebound for some to say that the crypto winter was beginning to thaw. Then it happens. COVID hits and the world is turned upside down. The stock market goes absolutely insane. There is complete confusion on what our future could look like as COVID begins to infect people worldwide. This isn't a thing any of us had really ever experienced before, and nobody knew how to prepare. The stock market took an absolutely catastrophic plunge, having several days where the S&P 500 lost more than 7% of its value. It was a scary time and one that pretty much came out of nowhere. The US economy had not been in a recession for nearly 10 years, and while the growth in the economy had slowed a little, it was still overall very strong. Then COVID hits and the brakes are slammed on. Bitcoin was obviously affected by this too, dropping nearly 50% in just 2 days, putting its price below $4,000. Just like every other asset, no one really knew how it would respond to COVID. Bitcoin was definitely a more interesting case, though. It was so new, and while it was created as a response to the 2008 financial crisis, it hadn't been through any major economic disaster like most other asset classes had. Bitcoin is a famously volatile asset already, and with the panic that was going on throughout many financial markets at the time, nobody wanted to be in something that had the potential to completely collapse. As long as America got through COVID, most standard investments should be able to recover. After all, many of them had made it through the Great Recession, but Bitcoin was a black sheep that very few understood. What if it goes to zero? Will it ever be able to recover back to the all-time highs from several years prior? These were the questions people were asking themselves, and for many, the panic at the time had them anticipating the worst. Like anything, Bitcoin was created with a purpose. It exists as a solution to a problem. The problem, a corrupt monetary system that requires the trust of many institutions like banks and governments. But repeatedly that trust is breached by those third parties. The solution? Bitcoin, a decentralized currency that does not require a third party to verify transactions. A quote from Satoshi Nakamoto, the anonymous founder of Bitcoin from back in 2009 reads, The root problem with conventional currencies is all the trust that is required to make it work. The central bank must be trusted not to debase the currency, but the history of fiat currencies is full of breaches of that trust. Banks must be trusted to hold our money and transfer it electronically, but they lend it out in waves of credit bubbles with barely a fraction in reserve. We have to trust them with our privacy, trust them not to let identity thieves drain our accounts. Their massive overhead costs make micropayments impossible. Now obviously there are more complexities to Bitcoin, but at its core this is why it exists according to its founder. One big issue with Bitcoin is that the overall economy has done well since the financial crisis that initially spawned it. I know there are many persistent economic issues such as rapidly increasing housing prices and stagnant wages that were definitely ongoing between 2009 and 2020. But we hadn't seen an economic event that disrupts the lives of many people very quickly during that time. These sorts of events tend to make distrust for traditional institutions raise a significant amount. Think of movements like Occupy Wall Street. Many people came out to march directly on Wall Street to bring attention to issues like income inequality. This movement was a direct response to the 2008 financial crisis, and very likely would not have happened without it, even though many of those same issues were still present with or without the Great Recession. It's very hard to continue on blindly with everyday life when a large event begins to show the fractures in the system that we live in. Many people who are able to remain ignorant to the flaws in our society are now unable to avoid them. When COVID hit, many parts of our daily lives were changed. A lot of people were laid off from work for weeks or even months in some cases. Many jobs were switched to remote work, and it was heavily encouraged, if not mandated, that you stay at home as much as possible. All this was done to help stop the spread of COVID, but it was done at the detriment of the economy. The modern economy of the world is very reliant on people spending as much money as they can. Typically this is done by eating out, taking weekend trips, buying expensive cars. You get the idea. All these things help grow the economy. But now many people weren't able to take trips or too scared to spend their money on something that wasn't a necessity. This slowed economic growth to a crawl. It also meant that action was going to have to be taken by the government to keep people in a place where they could get what they needed to survive while also keeping the economy from completely collapsing. And unlike many policies passed by our governments, these would directly and immediately affect us, our friends, and our families. We all endured multiple disturbances in our daily lives around this time. For many of us, that meant a lot more free time to observe what was going on in the world and not just in our personal lives. We were able to reflect on what we saw and we didn't like it. Much of it was very reminiscent of what was going on back in 2008. Many large companies received a lot of kickbacks to help them get through this tough time, with very little media pushback. On the other hand, many of us individuals weren't given even enough to keep us going, and it was made very clear from many politicians and news outlets that we were lucky to have gotten the little that we did get. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. The net worth of many billionaires soared to new great heights, with some of the richest people having their fortunes double in 2020, while banks charged over $12 billion in overdraft fees the same year. And, spoiler alert, those fees don't get charged to the richest Americans. They get charged to people with low income who can barely afford rent, food, and other basic necessities. If you think about it, it's basically just a tax for being poor. $12 billion was charged to people in a time when many Americans were struggling to find steady employment, busy homeschooling their kids, and dealing with sickness among the people closest to them. This, along with many other things, has convinced a large number of Americans and people worldwide that there has to be a better way, and when searching for that better way, they came across Bitcoin. All of that brings us back to where we are today. With all the flaws in our current system, many are turning to Bitcoin and Satoshi Nakamoto's original vision of what it could do for our society. A lot of people wonder, how can some non-existent thing have any real value? It seems crazy to them that one Bitcoin could have any worth, much less tens of thousands of dollars of it. But what a lot of them are missing is the movement behind it. Bitcoin has value because of its decentralized nature and what it can do for the individuals who embrace the system it has created. It is controlled by the many instead of the few, which is the antithesis of our current financial system. Yes, there are people out there who just want to make a quick buck or get rich off of Bitcoin. But there are many of us who genuinely want to see Bitcoin succeed for what it is. Not just what it can do for us, but what it can do for everyone in our society. This is the big difference between the 2017 and 2021 Bitcoin bull runs. Now many people have experienced and still are experiencing some of the worst things our current system has to offer. This means not only do many retail investors have money in Bitcoin and other cryptos, but they have personal skin in the game as well. They want to see Bitcoin succeed so that we can see our society improve. I'm not saying that Bitcoin is going to solve every single problem we have. It definitely won't. I do, however, think that we will see crypto and blockchain technology as a whole change our lives in many ways over the coming decades. Many of those changes will definitely be for the better. The 2020 pandemic has shaped our lives in many ways and made us reevaluate what we find important. It has us seeing the worst in our world and asking what is the solution. Because of that, I think there is a renewed conviction behind Bitcoin and everything surrounding it, ushering us into a new era for this emerging technology. Will we see another crypto winter? It's possible, but long term it's hard to believe that the future is anything but bright for Bitcoin.